Happy Canada Day, beautiful people. Hope you're doing well. Great to be back in the studio. Let's go. We are excited because what a weekend we had. It was a great long weekend. Has been an awesome long weekend. And what the heck has been transpiring it's been insane. It's almost like it's been, I don't know, predictable. With everything we said is going to happen has happened. Mark Carney, it was not being serious during the election. He was lying to his followers about what was going to happen, what was going to take place, and how he was going to deal with Trump. Trump is dealing with him. But the conversations have been the liberals, Mark Carney and his people. The cabinet has lost control over negotiations with the U.S. We are now officially on U.S. time. We do whatever Donald Trump wants us to do, and we can do two things about it. Absolutely nothing and like it. That is what's been happening. That is what's come to the surface over the past weekend as it comes to these deals with DST, as it comes to these deals when it comes to supply management in our dairy industry here in this country. It is wild. It has been something to behold. And what has been the most interesting, hasn't it? Obviously, everyone who's been watching the show, people who know what's been going on, been in the know, knows this is exactly what you expected to happen. We said this was going to happen. We said that Mark Carney was going to fold like a cheap suit. Even people in his circles, Ian Bremmer being one of them, saying Canada's going to fold very, very soon after the election and capitulate to whatever the U.S. wants and needs. Miss Michelle Rempel-Garner took the time to remind everyone of that article yesterday. Says the head of Mark Carney's wife's firm said this during the campaign. Let's remember, I expect Ottawa will quietly fold shortly after the vote. The problem is this wasn't totally true. It said they would quietly fold after the election. No, it's been super loud with how much they folded after the election. Everyone knows about it. And the fact that everyone knows about it means that his followers, liberal supporters, are now trying to explain this one away. What's going on? What has been taking place? Well, we find out. We will be talking today. There is chaos going on in the caucus behind the scenes. Mark Carney doesn't know how to deal with it, and he's just doing it in Mark Carney's way. We have people on the ground in media who are trying to explain everything away, saying Mark Carney knows what he's doing. Everything that's interesting to watch. And then we have the U.S. ambassador to Canada waking CBC anchors up with what exactly is going on, and they stand stunned. That is what's going on today. That is what's happening. Welcome to the Elevate Podcast. I'm your host, Josh. If you get any value from this show today, please take the time to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Help the show, helps us grow, and helps us to keep uncovering these stories, getting down to the bottom of it, and trying to package it up, deliver it to you in a way that is most digestible so you can know what is going on in this country. Now let's get into our first story, shall we? Caucus is, getting interesting. Mark Carney is doing, Mark Carney things. And then caucus is a little bit in disarray in the Liberal Party. And they explain it here on the CBC panel.
I think it reflects the way this government is running things. You know, this Modi backlash that is happening within the Liberal caucus, if they had discussed this issue ahead of time with the caucus, they would have been able to mitigate so much of the backlash that has happened. The same thing with C5, the Natural Resources Bill. If they had talked to caucus about it before and not briefed them an hour before they tabled it, some of the backlash would not have happened. Or the stakeholders on the border bill. They don't seem to value caucus as a sounding board, and I think this is going to cause more and more problems if they don't realize it soon.
Well, we've seen that certainly with past prime ministers. Chantal, last word.
Plain and simple that it wasn't in the election platform is because there's no way the math could have at all worked. 5% of military spending, and this is 5% of GDP, so it's not a number. You can grow the economy and make this less a significant spend, is almost a third of all government spending. And there's some of that spending you can't touch. It's transfers to healthcare. It's transfers to people. It's old age security. Yeah. You can't touch this stuff. So the idea that they could cut this much out of the federal government is quite surprising and will be felt if that's the way they're going, or they're just going to add more to the deficit and the debt. And this will be structural deficits that I'm sure Andrew will write lots about.
Did you catch the beginning of that? They talked about a couple of different topics of things that are going on. The Modi issue, Bill C5, other topics where caucus is getting ramped up. Caucus is getting frustrated. Caucus is voicing their displeasure with Mark Carney and his cabinet because they're not being included in any decisions. These types of issues of what the party's doing, what they're trying to table, typically supposed to come up in caucus meetings. They've not been doing it. What Mark Carney's been doing, as has been saying, oh, Bill C-5 here, we're going to show it to you an hour before a caucus meeting, and you're just going to have to agree with it. You're going to have to be okay with it. That's been Mark Carney's way. He's been doing it with a wide variety of issues where he's like, he's already made the decision. He doesn't care what his caucus has to say. He doesn't care what the party has to say. And it makes you think, what is really going on? If this is what caucus is getting riled up about before the DST collapse in conversations, before the supply management conversations with Donald Trump, what is happening now? Well, we don't know because, well, they're on vacation. They're on summer vacation. We'll find out in the fall. But if things like this continue to happen over the summer where Donald Trump is just going to have his way, caucus is going to be very ugly come the fall. And I said it at the beginning of Mark Carney's time as prime minister, and I'm going to reiterate it now. When he first got in, I said give him 8 months to a year before he starts becoming one of the most hated prime ministers in our country. And he's already on that track. All it needs to happen is people in the caucus get frustrated. People in media get frustrated. And they start peddling stories and they start pressing on Carney more and more and more that even his allies are being like, throwing their hands up, and he gets the Justin Trudeau treatment. Except for this time, he gets it inside a year instead of Justin Trudeau getting it inside 10 years, which I think will be a world record for Mark Carney. He has lost control of his caucus. He has lost control of his cabinet. And he has lost control of these negotiations with Donald Trump. The thing that he promised, he campaigned on that he could do, it's not looking good on all fronts for Mark Carney. You can try to dress it up however you want to dress it up. But the reality is what the reality is. And we see it plain and simple, no matter what happens. For example, liberal pundit Laura Babcock was getting real loud, getting real frustrated about this Donald Trump, Mark Carney stuff. She's been such a huge apologist for Mark Carney throughout this whole process. Huge apologist for the Liberal Party of Canada. She's been saying and doing whatever she can to cover up all the faults of this party and this leadership. This was no different. I'll show you what I mean. Here's a 40-second clip of her being on her show. And listen to her talk, and then I'll show you the reference of what she's getting at.
I want people to understand that we're not talking about it enough in the mainstream media here in Canada. When we have an actual threat on our border, there's a lot of American-owned media that is never going to let their foot off the gas. So we really need our Canadian-owned media to get in the game.
Wherever I go, I get a sense that Canadians get it. Certainly, as you point out, our mainstream media, completely uninterested. Another yawn, another roll of the eyes. I mean, part of it, I think, is, if you're a paid pundit in Canada, you have to have that world-weary cynicism that you've seen it all before and nothing surprises you. Well, nobody's seen this before.
Obviously, that's a lot of clips all stacked together, what was going on. But what Laura's been crying about for age at this point is American-owned media, meaning Post-media here in Canada. And she says, no, we need our Canadian-owned media to get in the game and fight back. Hear what she's calling for. She's calling for activist journalism. Not journalism, activist journalism that supports her way of life, her viewpoint. And that's exactly who she's yelling to get in the game. Be more biased. Tell the different story. Give more slanted points of view. That's what she's calling for. And do you know what she was upset about in that clip? Do you know what she's annoyed by in terms of the articles that are being run? She's annoyed by the headlines that are being run. This is what she's getting frustrated by. This headline right here, elbows down. Carney told Canadians he could handle Trump. So far, he's been all talk and no action, and she was absolutely livid over this headline. How dare you? How dare you report the truth? I don't care what side of the aisle you're on this. We all saw what happened. No matter what the Liberal Party, no matter what their supporters, no matter what the hardcore Carney apologists are going to say, you can see a duck looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's likely a duck. We saw it happen. Donald Trump squashed all debate, squashed all negotiations until DST was figured out. 2 days later, Mark Carney says, okay, DST is off the table. All of a sudden, Donald Trump's like, okay, let's get back to conversations here. Is that a elbows up approach? Is that an aggression? Is that a huge, good negotiator approach? No. We all saw it plain as day. Yet, someone like Laura Babcock is going to get offended that newspaper pointed out the truth of what we just saw happen this past weekend. Livid, frustrated. However, she continues to ignore the things that are happening in the party behind the scenes that we just talked about. The caucus is frustrated. The caucus is fighting. The caucus is getting annoyed. The caucus is losing patience. Mark Carney is ruling by decree. And guess what? Laura Babcock says, I want more of that. Do you want more of it? Well, clearly, if you want more of that, then you want more of Donald Trump being your daddy. Because that's exactly what is taking place right now. We don't have any national interest. We don't have a national identity. Right now, we are just a breeding ground for whatever American interests are. We don't have a government that actually cares about us. The only good things we get as citizens these days are just byproducts of what Trump is fighting for the American people right now and putting that pressure on the Canadian government. That's all we get these days. We're just the kids sitting outside the candy store hoping a rapper flies by that, oh, that might be nice. It's ugly. It's terrible. And so ugly so much so that the U.S. ambassador hopped on CBC and they talked about the negotiations happening again between Mark Carney and Donald Trump. And CBC anchor here gets really frustrated and takes issue with the fact that Donald Trump calls Canada nasty. And the U.S. ambassador expands on that issue.
You are being very positive about all of this, talking about things being on track. U.S. President said in his interview with Fox News over the weekend that Canada is, quote, very nasty to deal with. How is Canada nasty, Ambassador?
Well, I think Canada, well, I want to be very, very positive because the relationship is a great relationship.
But these are the words of your president.
No, I know. And we're going to be stronger after this than maybe what we are right now. It's going to be an even stronger relationship. But, what is the president thinking about? Oh, they just slapped a brand new tax on us that we've told them for months is an unfair tax. Oh, by the way, you have 11 out of your 13 provinces who ban American products on their shelves. We haven't banned a single Canadian product in the United States. That's a pretty nasty move, okay? You have a number of your provinces have put in provisions into their procurement process that say, oh, if you're an American company, oh, yep, you can't bid. That's pretty nasty.
Yeah, but that was in response to the U.S. slapping major tariffs on this country.
Exactly right now.
So responding is nasty? I'm just trying to get to the heart of this, Ambassador.
Where we are today. Okay. I will accept your characterization of potentially putting tariffs in place. Okay. 90 to 95% of the products that we trade are USMCA compliant, which means there are not tariffs on them.
Yes. I mean, I think we can both acknowledge that the road to get there was pretty complicated, but you've talked about...
We simplified some of those, okay?
Look how offended the CBC anchor was of the idea that Canada's being called nasty. Right now, our Canadian faux identity has been that we're so kind, we're so nice, we're pleasant, we're thoughtful. Yet, that characterization, that reputation is being torn and tattered because we have poor leadership in this country. We have 5 different groups, 5 different countries running foreign interference in our country. We have multiple extremist groups terrorizing citizens in this country. We have no leverage in our negotiations with the United States. We have no leverage really with any negotiation really with anybody because we don't do anything. And so when those truths are highlighted, we saw with Laura Babcock, I'm so offended. How dare you talk about what's going on? How dare you bad talk Canada? The reality is what the reality is. We're just speaking the truth. And just because the truth's a little hard, a little truth's a little tough, you're just going to ignore it. Guess what? It's been getting ignored for a better part of 10 years. And look where we are. So guess what? We're done with ignoring it. And we're going to keep calling it out, whether how uncomfortable you get with it or not. And he was right. We outright ban American products on our shelves. We don't allow American companies to bid in this country because we got a little hurt. Feelings got hurt because we had 25% tariffs put on our aluminum. I'm not trying to be an American apologist here, but quite frankly, I'll call it what it needs to be called out. What we're doing is quite frankly foolish. It's an absolute joke. And we're only hurting our citizens in the process by trying to look like we're tough. The only thing we're doing is dousing ourselves in kerosene and letting ourselves on fire, trying to prove a point to America. That's all we're doing right now. And to give you an idea of how stupid this idea is, I was talking to a friend. Went to a bar downtown Toronto. And His wife wanted a particular drink that included the likes of Kahlua. Ordered the drink, and the waiter said, okay, well, we're doing this whole elbows up thing, so we are actually not going to be using Kahlua in this drink. We are going to be substituting with another type of drink from Italy. And he's like, okay, fair enough, sure. Waiter goes away. They do their thing. He starts looking up. All right, where's Kahlua originate? Well, Kahlua originates with a company in France. Their headquarters are in France, and they manufacture the product in Mexico. Not a whole lot of involvement in the United States. It's like, okay. Then looks up the product they're replacing it with. As I said, it's a company out of Italy and manufactures it in Italy. Fascinating. So, waiter comes back. He brings this point up to the waiter. And the waiter's like, oh, it's just our policy. It's just what we're doing. It's just our policy. He's like, okay. Can I have a Coca-Cola, please? The waiter's like, yeah, absolutely. Here you go. Brings it over. He's like, you realize Coca-Cola is headquartered in Atlanta. You realize their product is manufactured in Atlanta. So I'm allowed to buy a Coke, but I can't have Kahlua in my drink because it's perceived to be American made. Yet the solutions that you brought me with have nothing to do with Canada or the United States. But I asked for a Coca-Cola. Oh, that's allowed though, because your rhetoric and your ideology makes zero sense. And it's being broken down day by day by day. But because the Canadian people have been so traumatized, because the Canadian people have been so propagandized, they can never see through their delusion. And this is why I get frustrated. This is why I get annoyed. This is why I get, honestly, passionate about these issues. Because it frustrates me to see people get absolutely lied to and then double down when they realize the lie they've been told is being broken down before their very eyes. And they still can't see it or choose not to see it because it might mean something for them. That is what we're seeing currently. I'll show you what I mean. I'll show you another example. Peter Ratcliffe, Forever Canadian, just another account here, says Canada, the toughest, smartest, kindest, most civilized 40 million people country that the US will just never own. If Canada decides to live without US trade, we're tough enough to survive and then thrive, but the US is basically screwed. You don't even see our cards. This is where we're at, folks. The absolute stupidity. We've gone through the numbers on the show multiple times. We do close to $1 trillion a year in trade with the United States. There is no amount of countries that you can put together to replace that level of trade and then expand from there. There's no. You have to do it in the United States. We have no cards to play. We are not the side A in this conversation. We are side B, and we'll do whatever Donald Trump tells us to do. And that's the reality, and it sucks. But that is just the reality because you keep voting for people that have put us in this situation, and that is where we are at. So you can cry about it. You can keep lying to yourself, but that is where we are currently at. And guess what? No lying, no matter of deceit is going to cover up for Mark Carney what's happening right now. He's getting his booty slapped all over the place, and there's nothing he can do about it. And as I said, I'll say it again. He can do two things, absolutely nothing, and like it. That's where we're at. I know you don't like it, but it's the reality. But they keep going on with this. Gator Gum says, here's the video. The people too busy tweeting about elbows are ignoring. And the video is Mark Carney saying that this was all part of the plan. We planned for this to happen, so it's all good. Sure you did, Mark. Sure you did. But this is the thing. It's a very clear and measured statement about the process of negotiating a complex deal. Oh, dude, you know all about negotiations, Gator Gum, now do you? Okay, gotcha. Many moving parts. Carney said he absolutely anticipated this move. So you either believe that and see this as part of a bargaining, or you think he's lying and just caved. It makes total sense to me, especially when it was discussed already after watching the UK dealing, and given how quick and easy it was to manipulate around. The negotiation end date hasn't changed. This likely is really much ado about nothing in the end. But hey, a bunch of people got to yell about elbows and parrot each other for a few days. This is complete and utter behavior of showing that you're wrong, of not acknowledging that you were had. And of course, the other side is not going to be letting you off the hook on this one. They're going to be tweeting all about your elbows up that you kept regurgitating for weeks during the campaign. Saying, well, yeah, we're going to show him. You showed him absolutely nothing. But you keep living this delusion that somehow we have negotiating power. We have some negotiating power, but it's not enough to do much of anything. We were saved from a DST tax in this country. And it wasn't because of our leadership. It wasn't because of our MPs. It wasn't because of our senators. It wasn't because of our political establishment. It was because of America that we were safe from an additional tax in this country. That's how big of a joke our political class is here. And that's where we're at. It's not the most encouraging episode, but it's a reality check episode. As I said at the beginning of the show, we're probably 6 to 8 months away from Mark Carney being deeply unpopular and the pressure being applied to him. And it's time for the official opposition to get their ducks in order, because that time is coming around again. And you need to be a true, utter, different choice that people want to vote for to get over the hump, win over those moderates, and win a stinking election and get Canada off this crazy ride. But anyways, have yourselves a good one. I'm out.